Let's get started. The Rose Lantern kit has several different types of stitches and a lot of techniques that are involved to make these flowers. I think you'll really enjoy it. We're going to show you two ways to make your cuts. The first method is not the method that we recommend, but some people find it helpful. The first way is to outline the main pieces of your plastic canvas and stitch the center. The big drawback to this is that sometimes the marks get on your yarn and that you have to be very careful when you do your final cutting. This method is great for people who have a hard time seeing the graph or perhaps have a hard time with their counts. That way all their stitches are in place before they begin cutting, but doing the detailed work is often difficult. In our sample here, what we did is we did the main color and then we have to do overcasting and the detail work. And we plan on cutting it about now, so that way we can hide any mistakes that we make. No matter what method you use, whether you cut before or after you work your yarn, I recommend that you lay everything out. If you look here, we have a mistake right in this spot, and we wouldn't have seen it if we didn't lay everything out. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our nail polish remover, we're going to use one of these little cotton balls right here, and we're going to be very careful not to smudge the yarn that we've already worked with these pigments. Then we're going to lay this out, clean up the piece, and remark it so it's ready for cutting. One of the reasons we like to use Sharpies or permanent markers is because the marks stay put through your handling. So if you pick it up and put it down, or in our case, we're marking the entire piece before we make our cuts, you're less likely to smudge your work. And if you do need to erase it, you can erase it. The lines are really crisp and clear. You can see everything. Let's show you the second method where you'd mark every detail of a canvas from beginning to end before you cut. So take a look at these patterns that come with your Rose Lantern kit. Mary Maxim patterns have marks along the sides to show you where 10 is. This pattern does not. It's done by Design Works, so it's a little different than a Mary Maxim pattern, but there's a lot of really fun things involved. So what I would recommend to you is to grab a pen or a pencil and double check all your markings. Write where your markings are going to be on the top. Write those additional visual cues on your pattern as well as your plastic canvas. So if you see here, we made those additional cues down at the bottom. That way when we're counting, we know exactly where we are. We're going to now mark corresponding visual cues on our canvas using a permanent marker. So my favorite helpful hint when counting and marking your canvas is I do 2 counts. I do a count from bar to bar, and then I count all the bars in between. So we definitely don't count spaces. It's much easier, much more effective if you count from bar to bar. So here I skipped the first bar. That one I don't count. That's just my personal preference, so it's whatever works for you. And I mark every 10. Then I mark where my first line is going to go, and I start a recount. My recount was correct, so I'm going to draw a small line and start counting the other side. After I've counted and recounted and am confident, I'm going to draw another small line. Connect the lines and you have your first outline. I recommend that you outline all the big pieces in your canvas first before you start working your detailed work. This lets you know that everything is placed in the right order and your outline sizes are the right size and shape before you get in there and do your small detail work. For the purposes of this video, and because we want to show you how to do a little bit of everything, we are going to get right into doing the details in this piece. The key to working all the small details in the plastic canvas is to count, then count, then count, then count again. We know here that we're supposed to be at 5 over and 7 up. So once I get there, I'm going to make a little mark and then I'm going to double check my counts. Once I'm confident, I'm going to start making little marks where I know my lines are going to go and count the next portion. Now that we've learned, or at least we're refreshed on good technique in counting our canvas, let's go back to the one that we needed to fix. In this one part of our lantern handle was too big. So we took our nail polish and we essentially erased the old line. Now you still see some residuals of that. So we're just going to remark it. And then what we want to do before we start cutting, we want to mark the inside. We've double checked our counting and we are now ready to cut our plastic canvas. We have two types of scissors. These are plastic canvas scissors. You can purchase them at marymaxim.com or marymaxim.ca, and they're made specifically to cut in the mesh without breaking bars. Now when you place your cuts, you want to make sure you're not cutting on the bar but next to the bar. The bar should stay. That is where you're going to do your overcasting and do a lot of your work, so you don't want that to break. All we're looking to do is to get the outline. We're going to use the finishing scissors to make sure that there's no rough edges. Now use your finishing scissors to make sure that all the edges are flush and that there's nothing sharp poking out or anything that would snag your yarn as you're working on it. When finished, use your nail polish remover and cotton ball and clean the marks off your canvas. This is especially important if you're using light colored yarn, as the yarn can sometimes pick up pigments and it keeps your project clean. If you're using a dark colored yarn, this may not be necessary and you may like having those visual cues on your canvas. It also makes sure that the permanent marker doesn't rub off on your hands. If you choose to work the stitch before you cut method, it is easier to work the detailed stitch work without worry of a miscut, and there is less worry of small or delicate canvas breaking before you get to stitch it. The cons is that there's a chance of cutting your stitches and marker or other marks can rub off on your project before you get it cut. The second method, where you cut before you stitch, is Mary Maxim's preferred method. The pros are that you're not likely to cut the stitches that you've already worked. And if you have a miscount or a miscut, you can easily start over with a new piece of canvas without ripping out your work. The cons are sometimes you don't catch mistakes right away and you'd have to rip it out anyways. We hope you've enjoyed this cutting video for the Rose Lantern Plastic Canvas Kit and hope that you're going to join us for the June Make-Along. If you're following along on YouTube, make sure that you head on over to our Facebook groups. The link is in the description of this video, and join the Mary Maxim Plastic Canvas Crafters group. There's a special section called Units. And if you go to the Units section, you'll see Summer Make-Along Rose Lantern. Posted under there are all the posts and discussions that pertain to the Summer Make-Along. That way you can stay up to date and in the discussion. Everything in the Units section is also in the discussion section of this group, plus many more things like a free pattern of the week. We can't wait to see all of your progress, so make sure that you post in our weekly work in progress post. In our next video, we'll start our basic stitches. Thanks for joining us and happy crafting!